The diner buzzed with the quiet hum of chatter, clinking cups, and an old radio playing soft blues in the background. Morning light filtered through dusty blinds, cutting pale lines across the cracked leather booths. In the far corner, by the window, sat an old man with trembling hands. His gray hair was uncombed, his clothes neat but faded, and his eyes, once surely sharp, seemed clouded, drifting in and out of the present like a man lost at sea. He stirred his coffee mechanically, forgetting that he had already added sugar 3 times. The waitress on duty sighed as she passed by him. "He's been here since 7 again," she whispered to the cook. "Doesn't talk to anyone. Never tips, just sits there and stares." A group of young men in suits entered, loud and careless. One of them glanced at the old man and smirked. "Guess this place serves everyone, huh?" he muttered, loud enough to be heard. The cook chuckled nervously, pretending not to notice the veteran's trembling hand as he tried to lift the spoon to his mouth and missed. A few customers turned away, uncomfortable, but no one spoke up. The old man's gaze stayed fixed on something beyond the window. A street sign, maybe, or a fragment of memory no one else could see. His lips moved slightly, whispering names that no one recognized. Eleanor. Base Camp. August 68. The waitress looked over her shoulder once, felt a flicker of pity, then shrugged. "He's harmless," she said under her breath. "Just one of those lost souls." Hours passed. The diner's pace slowed as the lunch rush ended. The old man was still there, his coffee cold, untouched. The cook muttered, "He's wasting a table," but no one dared tell him to leave. A faint smell of old cologne clung to him, a ghost of a life once elegant, now buried under confusion. His wallet lay open on the table, empty except for a faded photograph of a young woman smiling beside a plane. Her hair was tied with a ribbon. The photo had been folded so many times it was splitting at the edges. A cold draft blew in when the door opened, and with it came Maya, the new waitress. She was tall, graceful, with tired eyes but a warmth in her expression that hadn't yet been dulled by the long shifts. She tied her apron, greeted the cook, and immediately noticed the lonely figure in the corner. Something about the way he sat, the quiet dignity despite his frailty, made her stop. The others ignored him like he was invisible, but she couldn't. She grabbed a clean napkin, walked over, and set it gently beside his cup. "Good morning, sir," she said softly. The old man blinked, startled. It had been a long time since someone had spoken to him kindly. His eyes, pale and lost, flickered toward hers. "Do I know you?" he asked, voice trembling. "No, sir," she smiled, kneeling beside the table. "But I think you look like you could use someone to talk to." He looked at her hand as she reached across the table, hesitant, then slowly placed his own over hers. It was cold, fragile, like paper left out in the rain. A single tear slipped down his cheek. "It's been a long time since anyone asked," he whispered. Maya squeezed his hand gently. "Well, I'm asking now." And for the first time in years, the old man smiled. A small, uncertain human smile that cracked open something forgotten in his heart. The next morning, the old man sat at the same table, wearing the same faded jacket, as if afraid to move too far from the only place he felt safe. The diner was livelier than usual, people rushing in for their morning coffee, clattering dishes, and the scent of frying bacon in the air. Maya arrived a few minutes before her shift started, scanning the room automatically, and there he was, exactly where she'd left him. But this time, when she walked over, he smiled faintly as if he'd been waiting. "Good morning, sir," she said gently, pouring him a fresh cup. "You came back." "Did I?" he asked, confused. "Feels like I never left." He stared down at his reflection in the dark coffee, frowning. "Sometimes. I think I live here." Maya sat across from him for a moment, ignoring the annoyed glance from the manager behind the counter. "You mentioned yesterday that you were in the army," she said softly. "Do you remember much about that?" He hesitated, eyes flickering with fragments of memory. Yes. No. Some days I wake up in a tent. Other days I'm in a mansion I can't find anymore. Funny, isn't it? His voice cracked on the last word. They say I forget things, but I think it's the world that forgets me. She listened in silence, letting him talk. The words came slowly, like stones lifted one by one from a riverbed. He spoke of a factory he once built, machines, workers, something about an invention that changed everything, but his sentences broke apart midway. There was a partner, he murmured. He took it all when I got sick, said it was for the best. His gaze turned glassy again, lost. It was mine, all of it. I just can't remember how. Maya felt a lump rise in her throat. She reached for his hand again, steadying it as he began to shake. You don't have to remember everything, she whispered. You're still here. That's what matters. He blinked at her, the confusion softening. You sound like someone I used to know, he said. Someone kind. She smiled, brushing it off, though her heart ached for him. Then maybe I'm just her stand-in until you find her again. The manager's voice cut through the moment. Maya, table 3's waiting. She stood up reluctantly. I'll come back, okay? But as she turned, the man reached into his coat pocket, fumbling for something. He pulled out a small worn chain and set it on the table, a pair of dog tags. For you, he said, in case I don't come back. She frowned, confused. Sir, I can't. Please, he interrupted, his voice trembling. You're the only one who remembers me. After her shift, when the diner lights dimmed, and the others had gone home, Maya sat alone at the counter, turning the metal tags over in her hand. The name engraved on them was almost worn away, but she could still make it out. William C. Harrow. Something about it tugged at her memory. She couldn't stop thinking about it on her bus ride home. The name echoed in her head until she finally searched it on her phone. Her eyes widened as the screen lit up. Billionaire tech founder William C. Harrow declared missing after battle with Alzheimer's. A photo appeared beneath the headline. Younger, sharper, standing beside a private jet. The same face. The same eyes. Her heart pounded as the truth hit her. This frail, forgotten man sitting alone in her diner wasn't just a lost soul. He was a man the world had stopped looking for. And tomorrow, she swore, she'd make the world remember him. The morning air outside the diner was damp and cold, thick with mist that blurred the neon sign flickering in red and blue. Maya ran down the sidewalk, breath clouding in the chill, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. She'd barely slept. The name, William C. Harrow, echoed in her mind like a bell she couldn't silence. When she pushed through the diner's door, the bell above it gave a sharp jingle that startled everyone inside. The regulars turned their heads. The cook froze, mid-scramble, and there he was, sitting in his usual booth, coat buttoned, as if ready to leave. Mr. Harrow, she called, louder than she meant to. The old man flinched, startled, turning toward her with confused, frightened eyes. She hurried over and knelt beside him, breathless. Sir, please, don't go yet. Look at this. She turned her phone toward him, the screen glowing bright against the dim light. The article headline stared back at them. Billionaire William C. Harrow still missing after 5 years. Beneath it was a photo, his photo, standing in front of a glass building with his name on it. His eyes widened, trembling as they darted between the image and his reflection in the window. That's me. His voice was a whisper, fragile as paper. No, I was nobody. His hands began to shake uncontrollably, and Maya gently took them in hers. You're not nobody, she said, her voice trembling too. You built this. You changed lives. You've just been lost, sir. But you're found now. Something inside him seemed to break open. He blinked rapidly, tears spilling down his cheeks as flashes of his life crashed back into focus. A boardroom full of applause. His wife, Eleanor's laughter under the rain. The smell of motor oil and new steel in his first workshop. The betrayal, his partner's voice, cold and careful, saying, "Sign this, for your safety." The fear, the confusion, the night he'd walked out of his own home and never found his way back. He let out a small, shaking sob, burying his face in his hands. "I forgot everything," he whispered, "even who I was." Maya rested a hand on his shoulder. "But your heart remembered, Mr. Harrow. That's why you came here. That's why you waited." The diner had gone silent. Even the cook stood frozen, his spatula suspended mid-air. Then came the sound of screeching tires outside, black cars pulling up to the curb. Men in suits rushed in, scanning the room until one of them stopped dead in his tracks. "Mr. Harrow?" he said, voice breaking. "My God, it's really you." Cameras flashed from the doorway as news crews appeared, word spreading faster than anyone could believe. But in the middle of all the chaos, William didn't let go of Maya's hand. "They all see me now," he murmured, smiling weakly. "But you saw me first." He turned to the reporters, his voice still shaky but proud. "If you want to know who found me, it wasn't the police, and it wasn't my company. It was her." He looked at Maya with quiet reverence. A waitress who remembered that I was still a person. Weeks later, William Harrow returned to his estate, a mansion that had once been filled with noise but now stood solemn and still. The world called it a miracle. Some called it luck. But every morning, a black sedan stopped outside the small diner where Maya worked, and a man in a tailored suit with soft, cloudy eyes came in to sit by the window. She'd pour him coffee just like before, and they'd talk, not about money, not about loss, but about the small things that made life real. And sometimes, when the light hit just right, he'd look at her with a kind of gratitude words could never express. Because when the whole world had turned its back, she had taken his hand and brought him home.